Tonight on KVR News, a recap of the Tribune Fest,
an event to promote suicide awareness,
and what students can do about West Campus buses being too full.
You're watching KVR News, your leader for live, local UT coverage.
Broadcasting live from the Texas Student Television Studios at the University of Texas. You're watching KVR News at 9, Austin's leader for live, local UT coverage. Your news starts right now.
Good evening and welcome back to KVR News for Monday, October 19th. I'm Luke Menadani.
And I'm Cassie Pollock. Thank you so much for joining us.
Earlier today, the Texas Inspector General issued a letter defunding Texas Planned Parenthood locations from Medicaid programs. Texas Governor Greg Abbott was quick to announce the decision, citing that the organization violated several laws based on a series of videos released by the anti-abortion group Center for Medical Progress.
And in the letter, the Inspector General said that Planned Parenthood and its affiliates are no longer capable of performing medical services in a professionally competent, safe, legal, and ethical manner. The state of Louisiana is currently fighting a similar battle after Governor Bobby Jindal moved to cut Planned Parenthood from Medicaid. A federal judge ruled that funding must continue in Louisiana for another 14 days, and it is expected that Planned Parenthood will fight the state of Texas on this measure. 6 GOP candidates spoke with North Texas voters at Prestonwood Baptist Church Sunday afternoon at a forum held in Plano. The forum drew a crowd of over 6,000 to the megachurch, where each candidate had the opportunity for opening remarks and participated in a Q&A. Former CEO of Hewlett-Packard, Carly Fiorina, was the first one on the lineup, followed by U.S. Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, former U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum, former Governor of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson, and former Governor of Florida, Jeb Bush. Among the items discussed were abortion, same-sex marriage, the Iran deal, and religious liberty. The next GOP debate is set for October 28th, where candidates will meet again.
Right here on UT's campus, students, Texas politicians, and the public gathered for the 5th annual Texas Tribune Fest. Conversations about immigration, gay rights, and gun violence brought legislators from all across the country. New at the fest this year was a Snapchat live story. The partnership with the social media platform and the Texas Tribune was created to engage students and people all around the city.
We're all about trying to find ways to engage people with the content and the panels and the parties. And so most of that, if you're not here in person, takes place online. So we enable that through a lot of activities, through live streaming, through Snapchat, through Twitter, trying to make it so that people both here and people who can't make it to Austin can engage.
North Texas Uber drivers are taking part in a national strike against the ride-hailing service for the changes in policies and pricings. The drivers accuse the company for forcing the drivers to take calls that don't make money. New regulations in North Texas have increased the amount drivers must pay for insurance and permits. Drivers have claimed there are continuous decreases in the per-mile rates and have complaints on the inability to receive tips and being matched with people as far as 20 minutes away. In addition, although Uber had originally resisted fingerprinting of its drivers, Austin City Council has called for fingerprint checks and fees for ride-hailing services. Council members have stated that Uber may not be able to operate in Austin if the requirements are implemented.
As the UT system announces plans to raise tuition earlier this month, students are feeling the squeeze in more than just their wallets. They say buses transporting students from West Campus and across the 40 acres are getting too full. Our Maribel Santiago finds out what students can do to help redirect funds.
Despite the need for smaller buses and growing student population on West Campus, the WC bus shuttle is unable to undergo an increase in funding. Although funds are limited for popular UT shuttles like the West Campus bus, students are often frustrated traveling by bus as they are often overcrowded, especially during peak times.
I prefer to take the 20-minute walk home than to wait for the bus because I know it's going to be either packed or it's not going to get here, or it just takes too long to, get to the stops.
Blanca Gomez, the PTS Assistant Director over Transportation and Administration, says that once shuttle funds are received, are usually highly monitored to make sure the infrastructure caters well to students.
So we get roughly about $6 million, and then we use that money to provide services for the students to ride any of the Capital Metro services for free. And so we have to decide how to work with the money that we're given and, in a sense, get the most value for our money.
In addition to funding, Gamma says the growth in housing and the smaller roads make it difficult to upgrade buses, particularly in the West Campus area. As for the recent propositions by the UT Board of Regents to raise tuition, Gamma suggests students should express their opinions for more shuttle funding.
And surprisingly, most students do agree that, yeah, they would, be okay with a little bit more increase in tuition if they got more shuttle service out of it. But that's not necessarily our call. It's the students' call that they would have to make.
Maribel Santiago, KVR News.
North Korea is reportedly willing to sign a peace treaty with the United States to end conflict. North Korea's foreign ministry made the statement the day after President Obama and South Korean President Park Geun-hye said that they were ready to ease sanctions on North Korea, on the condition that North Korea give up its nuclear ambitions. North Korea has ruled out talks on its nuclear program and has continued to conduct nuclear tests after the six-party talks regarding the dismantling of nuclear weapons in the country in 2008. The United States and South Korea said that North Korea will face consequences from the UN Security Council if the country decides to test a nuclear explosion. North Korea claims that the only way to end conflict with the United States is to sign a peace treaty. Texas can continue to deny birth certificates to U.S.-born children of undocumented immigrants. A federal judge in Austin, Robert Pittman, has chosen to not intervene in this case. Health officials can continue to disregard certain types of identification as a way for a parent to obtain their child's birth certificate. The family's lawyers argue that the judge's failure to intervene jeopardizes the children's right to schooling, health care, and travel.
Despite the end of Suicide Prevention Week, the Austin community is still raising awareness about the issue. Nearly 1,000 people gathered at the Capitol grounds today for the Out of the Darkness Suicide Awareness Walk. Over 40,000 suicides are reported each year, making it the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. But the American Foundation for Suicide Awareness hopes to decrease suicide rates by 20% by 2025. Organizer of the walk and Texas Area Director Claire Idell says that starting the conversation about suicide is the place to begin.
Mental health is so important, and it's not something that it's talked about enough in our society still. So we've got to reduce the stigma surrounding suicide and talk about suicide prevention.
Still to come, Austinites unite for a good cause.
And why your water might not be as fresh as you think.
You're watching KVR News.
You're watching KVR News at 9. Your campus, your news.
Former Longhorns wide receiver Kendall Sanders has been found not guilty. Sanders was arrested June 2014 upon allegations of sexual assault of a UT student. This verdict was based on the inconsistency of the accuser's statements. Former teammate Montrell Meander was also involved in the incident, which happened in a campus dorm room. Unlike Sanders, Meander continues to play for the Longhorns and awaits trial. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Members from multiple Austin communities joined together in the second annual No More, No Mask March. Reporter Nancy Hernandez tells us more on how these survivors continue to fight.
Dressed in purple, domestic violence survivors and allies from the Spanish and English communities came together to raise awareness and honor victims at the No More, No Mask March. Representatives from Safe Place and Tu Voz said that it was important for people to realize that domestic violence does not affect only one particular race or class. It can happen to anyone.
Today we want to raise our voices and make the community understand that there is help. There's a lot of help. Women don't have to be going through this. There's a lot of support and a lot of help, and you can get out. I know it's really hard, but the important part is taking the first step. Once you take the first step, everything else is easier.
Children and men murdered at the hands of those who profess to love them were remembered at the event. In 2013, approximately 119 Texan women and children were murdered by an intimate partner. In 2014, that number increased to 132 victims. Survivors with Our Voices, Nuestras Voces, refused to remain silent any longer. Using pots and pans to create noise for these victims, they marched across the Ann Richards Bridge.
Years ago, women used to come out in Austin in the streets and bang pots and pans when someone was murdered. And I don't call it death by domestic violence, I call it murder, because that's what it is.
Depression and anger are phases of surviving domestic violence, so are happiness and gratitude. The survivors then celebrated their lives with music and performances.
So they would come out and they would make noise. So often we weren't allowed to speak, we weren't allowed to reach out. Women are often told not to get angry. Be quiet, don't laugh so loud, don't this. And we're like, we don't need any of that. We need to get angry, we need to make noise.
KVR News, I'm Nancy Hernandez.
The Australian government announced plans that will allow cannabis to be grown legally for medical and scientific purposes. More than 200,000 people signed a petition on change.org to support the decriminalization of this drug. Supporters argued that patients should not be criminalized for using the drug to ease their pain. The Australian Narcotics Drug Act of 1967 will be amended to allow for this change in policy. However, the recreational use of marijuana in Australia will continue to be illegal. And if your tap water is leaving a bad taste in your mouth, you might not be alone on this one. Reports show an algae bloom in Austin may be the secret to that odd taste. Our Loana Solis has the details on this story.
Musty. That's what many Austinites say their tap water tastes like.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. There's like a grassy taste I've noticed lately.
A recent algae bloom in Lake Austin is causing this taste, but Austin Water says it's not affecting the health quality of the water.
We clean it with several different processes where we put things to get the mud and dirt and algae out, and then we filter it, and then we chlorinate it. So that's the last step, and that's what kills any leftover bacteria that's not been taken out during our treatment process.
The taste, however, is the hardest thing to remove from the water.
What happens when we get this algae bloom, we add more activated carbon into our filters, and that really it filters out that bad taste as much as possible.
While the issue with the taste in water still stands, it's not all bad news. The effects of the algae in the water bring growth to the plants around it.
If anything, it would probably be a positive interaction since there would be more nutrients. Most of the time when things like algae grow, they're pulling nutrients that plants need as well.
Austin Water will continue adding activated carbon into the treatment process. But for now, the musty taste will stick around.
It seems worse in the ice, so I usually don't put ice in my water. But besides that, I just kind of suck it up and drink it.
Loana Solis, KVR News.
Google was victorious in an appellate court case that ruled that the company's book scanning project is entitled to full protection of fair use. This project was launched about a decade ago and has scanned as many as 20 million books so far. Google's project intends to create an online book database using short sections of each work to help the public search quickly for books. While many authors are upset about the ruling, the appellate court says that Google's project serves a public purpose and should be allowed to continue.
Families were happy to return to their homes this past Saturday after the Hidden Pines fire was contained. The 46,000-acre blaze is believed to have started as an accident on Tuesday afternoon when a rancher was pulling a shredder with a tractor through weeds and grass. Officials have reported that the fire destroyed 48 structures, most of them being homes. As of now, contractors and other workers are rebuilding power lines and cleaning up areas with burnt trees. With early voting set to begin today, voters are being reminded of the law set into place in 2013, which states the requirement of a photo ID when voting in person. However, many people of Bastrop County have unfortunately found themselves without any forms of identification due to the Hidden Pines fire. Texas Secretary of State Carlos Cascos said that voters who were affected may qualify for an exemption to these requirements in the November 3rd election.
Feeling that in the morning?
I know, hopefully it'll last.
Well, we got Eric Goodman in the Weather Center. Tell us what we can expect this week.
Well, let's just say that we will continue to feel that nice breeze and possibly expect some showers or even thunderstorms. I'll have your forecast after the break.
Have a news tip or story idea? Call the KVR News Tip Line, 475-8181.
It was a gorgeous Monday on campus today, and this week's temperatures are going to stay comfortably between the high 70s and mid 80s. Unfortunately, as we get closer to the weekend, our chance of rain and even scattered thunderstorms is going to increase. Tomorrow we can look forward to mostly sunny skies with a high of 86 degrees and only a 20% chance of rain. Wednesday's high will reach 85, but with a 60% chance of scattered thunderstorms. Same chance of stormy weather on Thursday, but with a high of 81. On Friday, you'll want to have that umbrella glued to your hip because we'll have a 100% chance of thunderstorms. Weekend highs will peak around 76 degrees with the rain sticking around until late Sunday afternoon. It looks like summer is going to finally wash away this week, and we might just get a short Texas autumn as we move closer to November. Live in the Weather Center, Eric Goodman, KVR News.
Thank you so much, Eric.
College Press Box's Lauren Barish will be in the studio to talk Longhorn sports after the break.
Stay tuned.
Now, KVR News at 9 Sports.
Welcome back to KVR News. I'm College Press Box's Lauren Barish. Number 2 ranked Texas volleyball swept Tech this past Saturday. Let's head to Gregory Gym for the highlights. Played to a sold-out crowd on Saturday. Midway through the first set, Chloe Collins will set up Amy Neal for the kill. You'll see that pair do that a lot. Now Texas is up 18-13, still in the first set. And once again, Chloe Collins with that bump set to Amy Neal for the kill. Texas leads 19-0. Now set point for the Horns. And guess who? Collins to Neal for the set win. Texas takes that first set. Second set was not as easy for the Horns. You'll see here Tech's Marguerite Grubb gives it to Lauren Douglas for a hefty kill. Tech is now up 12-10 in the second set, and Katie Keenan capitalizes on a Texas mistake and gets a sneaky kill. Later in the second set, Tech up 21-18. You see the struggle for Texas here. Chiako Obagu goes up for the swing, but Tech will block her. But the Horns will make a comeback. This is game point now for the second set, and Kat Brooks has an amazing dig here, which will set up yet again Amy Neal for another kill. Texas takes that second set 25-23. Horns sailed easily through the third set. Texas up at this point. Texas defense had an amazing performance, great rallying and blocks. You see one coming up right here from Chiako Obagu. The Texas defense pressures Tech into this miss hit, and Texas would sweep Tech 3-0 sets.
All right, great, Lauren. So the girls, they're number 2. They're ranked number 2, and they've been doing great like usual. You know, what else can we expect from them the rest of the season?
Well, they're going into Big 12 play now, and they've been doing really well in conference play. I genuinely think that if they can keep up this consistency with Amy Neal and Chiako Obagu and their great senior presence, I think that they will dominate Big 12 play and make it pretty far in the tournament, like you said, like they do every year.
And then also we have the Longhorn football team just had a bye week. You know, what can we expect from Charlie Strong after that big win against OU?
I think this win was huge for Charlie Strong. He's had a lot of pressure from donors and things like that, and this win really gives him some confidence, and that's only going to transcend to the team. They're going up against Kansas State this week, who's coming off a 55-0 loss from OU. I think that Texas needs to go in with that same mentality, like they're playing a top 10 team, and show Texas fans what they're really capable of. I think this should be a really good game for fans at DKR this weekend.
All right. Well, I hope they turned it around. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Well, we have Arthur Ray Villarreal joining us next. He's going to talk to us about entertainment. Stay tuned.
You're watching KVR News at 9. Your campus, your news.
Welcome back to KVR News. Lamar Odom is still in the hospital after being found unconscious Tuesday morning in a Nevada brothel. He was in a coma for 3 days after overdosing on performance enhancers. He's now able to breathe on his own without a ventilator. Doctors say he's swallowing and using hand signals to communicate. He remains on dialysis, and reports say brain damage is a possible outcome. Usher's music is now more powerful than ever. In a new interactive music video, Usher re-emphasizes Black empowerment by incorporating pictures and videos of people who are victims of police brutality. People who watch the video are forced to keep their eyes on the screen, otherwise the music stops. The 7th movie in the Star Wars series, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, is under scrutiny. Users on Twitter have voiced their disapproval for the new film with the hashtag #BoycottStarWars7. Star Wars fanatics are upset that previous white male character is now portrayed by black male lead John Boyega. This isn't the first time director J.J. Abrams has received backlash for his diverse casting. However, Abrams hopes that his decision in casting impact the film industry. Rumor has it Adele finally returns. After a 3-year hiatus, Grammy Award-winning songstress Adele teased a new song with a 30-second ad on the X Factor UK. The clip featured a black screen with lyrics popping up over familiar tones we know and love. The teaser is the first new music release from Adele since her song for Skyfall in October of 2012. There is no name or release date for the album, but music fans and critics are predicting a November release. And that's all for your entertainment news. Follow us on Twitter for updates at KVR News ENT.
Thanks, Ray, and thank you for joining us for tonight. I'm Luke Menadani.
And I'm Cassie Pollock. For news and weather updates throughout the week, follow us on our Twitter account at KVR News.
Stay tuned for College Press Box coming up next on Texas Student Television.
Good night.